This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. The former foster parent of Johnson Redhead is calling for an inquiry into his death. The boy's body was found 3.5 kilometers from his school in Shamattawa First Nation, just days after he went missing from the breakfast program. The foster parent says he was failed by the system, and one child advocate says government isn't learning from their mistakes. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the details.
Brittany Bannerman wants answers. She's the former foster parent of Johnson Redhead, who was found dead in Shamattawa First Nation after missing for several days. She says the 6-year-old was autistic and nonverbal, and he should have had more support.
Had he had proper one-on-one supports, supervising him at the school breakfast program to ensure that he made it from breakfast program to class, and proper one-on-one supports in a classroom, Johnson would have never went missing.
Redhead was returned to a kinship placement with family 2 years ago. Bannerman speaking with permission from the family and says Redhead's death highlights the need for improved resources in northern communities. Manitoba's child advocate represents children in care and investigates injuries and deaths. It says all levels of government should have done more to help Redhead.
In this case, there should have been some disability supports for the family, for Johnson to thrive.
Sherry Gott says this isn't the first time a child in care was left without the resources they needed.
I guess the province didn't learn enough, from the death of Jordan River Anderson. We know that Jordan River Anderson was a child with complex needs, and he needed all the support.
Anderson was a First Nations boy who died in 2005 while waiting for the provincial and federal governments to decide who would pay for his medical care. His death led to the creation of Jordan's Principle. Now when a patient needs medical care or supports, it's provided immediately, and who's going to pay for it is figured out afterwards. Bannerman wants to see accountability from all the systems and care providers that were responsible for Redhead's well-being.
There should be an inquiry into the gap of time from when he went missing to when it was noticed he was missing. There should be an inquiry into the lack of supports.
The province says Manitoba is grieving the loss of Redhead, but can't provide more information because the RCMP is still investigating. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Recruitment is now underway for people to help search a Winnipeg area landfill for the remains of 2 First Nations women murdered by a serial killer. The province is partnering with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs to hire people to search the Prairie Green landfill later this year. It's where the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are believed to be. There are multiple openings to be filled. Some will be held by specialists. However, they're also looking to hire searchers that need no experience, as training will be provided. Family and community members are encouraged to apply for those roles. First consideration is being given to Indigenous people. Emotional support will be available for all of those who are hired. Well, you'll keep saving when you fill her up. The gas tax holiday in Manitoba is sticking around, at least until the end of the year. But while some appreciate the relief at the pumps, it comes at a cost to a province that isn't flush with money. The CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
'Tis the season for relief at the pumps.
It's like a Christmas gift then.
Noelle Yahweh likes that this holiday is being extended.
I have children, I do school runs, so I drive to work, so it's a plus.
The province isn't wrapping up its gas tax holiday just yet. An NDP election promise, it was supposed to last 6 months until June. Then it got extended to September. Now it'll go until the end of the year.
Obviously, it's great for anyone who likes to drive a lot. So I have a couple friends who live on the edge of the city. They love it. I have a couple rural friends who live on farms or do a lot of farm work.
A finance professor says tanking the gas tax has led Manitoba to one of Canada's lowest inflation rates. But there's also drawbacks. The province is surrendering $340 million in tax revenue this year.
There will be a day when the piper needs to be paid, and the question is how, whether or not it be through other tax increases or through cuts to social services.
That day could come soon. Premier Wabkanu has warned fiscal restraint is coming.
They've also said they're going to improve health care and balance the budget. So those don't all line up, so something's going to have to give.
Molly McCracken is with a left-of-center think tank. She says the province needs the tax revenue.
They're having less money to work with to deal with some very pressing problems. One of the most critical is the climate crisis.
One driver says regardless of the price, he'll keep filling up.
At the end of the day, if you need gas, you're not gonna be like, oh, it's $1.56 this week. Let's wait till it's $1.39.
The province says it hasn't decided if the gas tax holiday will ring in the new year. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A convicted child sex offender is being released from prison, and police say he's expected to live in Winnipeg, and he's considered a high risk to offend. Daryl Ackman was released from Stony Mountain on Wednesday. He's known as Mr. Jets TV, his self-appointed online moniker. Ackman posted videos of women and teenage girls online, and police say he has a history of violent and sexual offenses. Between 2011 and 2012, he targeted vulnerable girls by gaining their trust and exploiting them in the sex trade for his financial gain. Police say despite participating in sex offender programming, he's considered at risk to reoffend. More information on his release can be found on our website, cbc.ca. Excessive workload, burnout, and distrust in leadership. A letter from Doctors Manitoba says these are some of the concerns coming from physicians at CancerCare Manitoba. Tonight, the CBC's Lana Cole looks at the issues being raised and has reaction from CancerCare's president and CEO.
We saw the letter Doctors Manitoba sent to CancerCare physicians. In it, the advocacy group said it heard from a number of doctors raising serious concerns. The letter says it's being sent to other physicians to find out how widespread the issues are. Among those highlighted, increasing and excessive workload demands due to inability to retain physicians and increasing complexity of patients, a lack of trust and a fear of reprisal from leadership for raising concerns, dissatisfaction with the workplace culture and support. CBC did speak with Dr. Sri Navaratnam today. She's the president and CEO of CancerCare. She's seen the letter and met with Doctors Manitoba. She admits there are challenges for those on the front line in healthcare, not just in this province.
For cancer, it's the incidence and complexity. On top of it, lack of resources, human resources, and financial constraints, all coming together. So we need to really think very hard, and we all have to work together. We want to bring the best care for Manitobans. That's what I always say.
She says she isn't taking the concerns personally, but is trying to find solutions.
When you do this job, you make some difficult decisions, and it affects few people at times. And so I'm not in a popularity contest. I want to do the right thing for the people. That's the only reason I'm doing this job for this many years.
Navaratnam says when it comes to some of those concerns raised, they're working on recruitment and retention of more physicians and putting together a committee to look at workload. Doctors Manitoba has declined an interview, but in a statement says, Doctors Manitoba routinely reaches out to physician groups when we receive a cluster of concerns with a goal of better understanding the concerns and ultimately of facilitating constructive physician engagement. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, Manitobans still have a chance to have a say on the design they want for the province's new plastic health card, but those on social media have already picked a favorite. Premier Wab Kinew posted on Instagram earlier this month asking Manitobans to vote on their favorite of 3 designs for the new health card. The design featured a bison, a polar bear, and the Northern Lights. He says the Northern Lights design won overwhelmingly on social media, but now they're asking people to head online to Engage MB to pick their top pick. Manitoba and Alberta are the last among Canada's provinces and territories to still use paper health cards. The City of Winnipeg wants to make its accessible taxi pilot project a permanent service. In 2022, the city and several cab companies started a vehicle for hire dispatch service for people who use wheelchairs or have other mobility needs. At the time, passengers waited as long as 2 hours for an accessible taxi. Now, more than 90% of the wait times are down below 20 minutes. City Council will vote next month to make the program permanent with some minor changes. It's been 54 years since Winnipeg experienced the worst plane crash in its history. In 1972, 9 people died when a small plane crashed in the Deer Lodge neighborhood. Now that crash has been memorialized forever as a dark chapter in both aviation history and the tragedy of residential schools. CBC's Bartley Kivas brings us the story.
Iona Wienusk was 21 years old in 1972 and had just finished a year of residential school in Portage la Prairie. She and 7 other students were on their way back home to Banabonaby Cree Nation, but they didn't make it. On June 24, 1972, their Ilford Riverton Airways Beechcraft D-18 took off from Winnipeg's airport, bound for Banabonaby at Oxford Lake. It suffered engine failure and crashed after takeoff in an empty lot on Linwood Street near Silver Avenue. All 8 students and the pilot died. 9 fatalities, marking the second worst aviation disaster in Manitoba history.
I ran down to see if I could do anything, and I got it within 50 feet, and it burst into flames.
Today, the families of the students and the pilot gathered at a park near the crash site as a plaque was unveiled to memorialize the tragedy.
Home, where the frost bites cruelly.
At the unveiling ceremony, Banabonaby Chief Richard Hart read Home, a poem Iona Wienusk wrote when she attended residential school.
I cherish even more that land of freedom, where I found that peace of mind, that carefree feeling, that intense life and beauty.
The crash remains indelible in Banabonaby's collective memory. Stacey Robinson is Iona Wienusk's niece.
To think of how the excitement these 8 students were feeling, taking off, coming home to the community of Banabonaby.
I wish the Indian residential school system and taking children away from their homes had never taken place in the first place. Then maybe the tragedy of June 24th would never have taken place.
9 trees have been planted around the plaque on Silver Avenue, one for every person who lost their life. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Weather specialist Riley Lachuk is in now. And Riley, most people are starting to think about that winter vacation usually around this time already. You don't need to go anywhere. It's hot.
You don't got to go very far if you want to find some hot temperatures. Even here in Manitoba, a few places cracking 30 today. Look at some of these temperatures from the afternoon, particularly into Saskatchewan, 33 in Saskatoon, 32 in Regina, some of the warmest air in the country in southern Saskatchewan, and some of that flowing into southern Manitoba today as well. 31s for both Brandon and Swan River this afternoon, 30 in Melita. To put this into context, we should be at around 15 degrees for a daytime high for this time of the year. And in some cases, some of these temperatures are lasting into the next couple of days, even our nighttime low staying very warm over the next couple of days. That's because of this high pressure ridge that we've been under, allowing some of that cloud covered instability to go further to the north and much hotter and drier summer air from the States really flowing into the southern prairie provinces. So I mentioned 15 degrees being a normal daytime high for this time of the year. Well, look at our nighttime low overnight tonight, down to 15 degrees, a clear sky in Winnipeg. South winds at 10. Winds pick up as we get into the morning hours tomorrow. 16 first thing in the morning. South winds gusting to 30, gusting up to 50 or more through the afternoon hours tomorrow. We keep the sunshine and a 28-degree high tomorrow, Brittany, and we have more hot temperatures in your long range, which I'll have in about 10 minutes.
Get those fans going.
Yes.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Out with the blue and gold and in with orange. Why your Winnipeg Blue Bombers and their fans will be donning different gear this Friday. The deep-rooted meaning behind it coming up straight ahead. This Friday, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are trading in the blue and gold for orange. It's the club's annual orange shirt game, and it's happening across the entire Canadian Football League as all 9 teams will wear Indigenous-designed logos. Here to talk more about what we can expect is the Community Ambassador for the Southern Chiefs organization, Kevin Chief. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hi, Brittany. Good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for being here. So first off, let's talk a little bit about what people can expect on Friday at the Bombers game.
Well, they're going to see a lot of orange to begin with, I think, and I think that's wonderful because as Call to Action 80 says, that we want to have a national day for truth and reconciliation that honors the survivors, that we have a national day of solidarity with both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people coming together. And although we have a very difficult and tragic history, we got to try to do what we can to make the best and turn that into something good. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of orange with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people standing together in solidarity to honor our survivors. And I can tell you, Brittany, every year I've been part of this, we see more and more people wearing orange. And I think we're going to be expecting about 30 to 40% of a sold-out stadium wearing orange to honor our survivors. So I think it's going to be wonderful.
It really is an incredible sight to see every year. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of a day like this and why it's so important that we continue to represent Indigenous people and voices, really especially ahead of National Truth and Reconciliation Day. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. Well, the first thing is that we want to make sure that we do honor the survivors, the families, the communities. This is a National Day of Solidarity. It's a day to make sure that people know that we're not going to forget. We still have a lot of families, a lot of living memories. We have a lot of elders. So we want to show them how much support there is to be able to build understanding. And I gotta say, I gotta give a shout out to Wade Miller and the Bombers organization. Because of the support and their leadership, every team in the CFL now is gonna be doing an orange shirt day where the players on the field will be displaying orange shirts to honor survivors. And that was led by our community right here in Winnipeg, the best fans in Winnipeg, to show that support and solidarity. And it continues to be a very important day. The other thing, Brittany, that's important to understand is for the first time in Canadian history, parents, children and grandchildren have a better understanding and a more fulsome account of Canadian history than their parents and grandparents. And so this allows us to use the biggest platform that we have here in our province and some of the biggest platforms throughout the country to draw attention for people that this history was purposely kept from them. And I think it's important that we continue to do it, to continue to honor survivors and continue to acknowledge and celebrate the resiliency and stories of achievement by our survivors.
There's really some amazing work that's being done here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. And one of the things that you told me about was the number of kids and teens that are going to be flown in specifically for this game. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Bombers organization in partnership with EIC, Perimeter Airlines, is making sure that young people that have some of the biggest barriers in their life, no fault of their own, living in isolated First Nation communities, are going to have the opportunity to be flown to this game, be able to see the amount of people. Many of them are going to be attending their first Bomber game. They're going to get to see stories and songs and things that represent them and who they are and where they're from. And I want to give a big shout out to the Perimeter Airlines, Mike Pyle, for making sure that when we have a day like this, that young people who would have no chance to be able to witness it firsthand and to stand in solidarity with their own relatives, they're all descendants of residential school survivors, that they come and get to see the best of who we are as a community. And I'm incredibly proud, like communities like Boonabonabee, Shamanawa, many of these isolated communities get to attend this game. And I think going into a game like this, they're gonna absolutely love it. There's an incredible amount of cultural performers that are gonna be part of it, and they're gonna get treated amazing. So pretty exciting about that. That we're making sure that young people from isolated communities get to be part of this, and celebrate these stories of resiliency.
Kevin, lastly, I just want to ask you, why is it important that we not only continue to represent these voices, but ahead of this day, what does it mean to you?
Well, my dad's a former residential school survivor and day school survivor. So for many Indigenous people, this is as personal as it can get. And you know, one of the things I always try to highlight about our survivors is they saw the worst of what humanity has to offer. And still with that, they found it in themselves to forgive, to make sure that they could build understanding and be able to support their families and the broader community. They came forward and they shared those stories that they carried for decades. They shared those stories because they knew people would listen. They knew people would believe them. And they knew that we wouldn't have another generation of young people in this country that don't get to build relationships based on mutual respect. When we have a day like this and they get to witness it firsthand, they get to see that we are listening, that we are responding in the best way that we know how, and that we'll continue to walk in solidarity and have a national day of healing for them, to make sure that we recognize the gift they gave us when they gave us the 94 calls to action. And that's really what we're celebrating. We're celebrating Call to Action 80, not just as Indigenous people, but all Manitobans. This is our collective history. When something's important to us, we can't tell people, we have to show them. And on Friday at 7 p.m., many people are going to see with an incredible amount of pride, orange shirts being worn by children, young people, and all Manitobans, and we're really excited about it. And I think this is an absolute wonderful gift to give back to our elders and our survivors.
Kevin, thank you so much for our time. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you for having me on. Kachimigwich.
And on that note, we know that there are going to be thousands of Manitobans that are out at that game on Friday. And Riley, is it going to be a nice day for them?
Yes, nice evening for some football. Winds won't be too strong on Friday so far, and temperatures staying above seasonal. Let's have a look at that football forecast because it is going to be a lovely evening to get outside. Whether you're going to the game or not, it's still going to be a nice evening to get outside for the Bombers, the Elks. Friday, 7 o'clock at kickoff, looking at 21 degrees in Winnipeg, 19 by halftime. So even still into the evening hours, 9, 10 o'clock, we're looking at pretty comfortable conditions. Winds southwest at 10. So our winds really die off once we get into the day on Friday once again. Tomorrow, a bit of a different story wind-wise, which I'll get into here in just a moment. As we take things out into the morning hours here, we keep the clear skies overnight tonight into the morning hours. So we're starting Thursday on a sunny note once again, albeit winds out of the south, and you can see some of these brighter colored arrows coming into Manitoba. That is signifying some of the stronger winds that we're expecting throughout the day tomorrow. This ahead of a little bit of instability, riding some of those upper level winds. Small area of low pressure looking like it will bring a little bit of rain to far northwestern Manitoba. Places like Lynn Lake, north into the Brochet region could even pick up a few showers. I'm talking 2 to 5 millimeters, nothing super heavy by any stretch, but just be aware that we could see some cloud, a few showers into far northwestern Manitoba. That clears out, and we're back to a mix of sun and clouds as we head through the day on Friday. And that continues as we head into the day on Saturday as well. Just a mainly sunny and warm few days ahead in Manitoba. I mentioned the winds. We'll talk about that quickly here as well as we take things out into Thursday, starting the day. South winds gusting to about 50 through the Red River Valley. And you can see as we get later into the day on Friday, some of these purples and blues start appearing. That is signifying some of those stronger gusts in that 40 to 60 range as we head into the Red River Valley, into the Interlake. Could even see some gusts even as high as 80 tomorrow in Churchill, part of a separate system, that other area that is moving into Manitoba. So windy through the Red River Valley, not as much back to the west. We'll see winds gusting to about 40. As we see this ridge of high pressure really dominate our pattern over the next several days, it does start to break down a little bit as we get into the weekend. So not quite summer-like temperatures into the weekend, but certainly still staying above seasonal. before things start to cool off as we get into next week. So tomorrow, looking at a high of 28 degrees, south winds gusting to 50, keeping those warm temperatures as we head into Friday and Saturday, Brittany. And then you can see our pattern starting to change as we look at Monday there. Slight chance of showers and temperatures falling quickly back to more fall-like as we get into next week as well.
I got that, falling quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Parliament has voted down a Conservative motion of non-confidence in the Liberal minority government. As expected, both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois voted against. But with that comes new challenges for the Liberals. We'll explain after the break. The Liberals survived a vote in the House of Commons today that threatened to bring down the government. The Bloc Québécois and the NDP failed to support the non-confidence motion introduced by the Conservatives. But as Kate McKenna reports, the Liberals are facing a new challenge to hold on to power.
Nays count 211,
With the first non-confidence vote defeated, the government survives for now. But today, the Bloc Québécois gave an ultimatum and a deadline.
Le Bloc québécois veut rendre public.
Leader Yves-François Blanchet says the government must pass 2 bills by October 29th or risk being defeated.
What we are proposing is good for retired persons in Quebec, but also in Canada. It's good for milk and eggs and poultry product producer in Quebec, but also in Canada.
The bloc bills would boost old age security for younger seniors and shield dairy, egg, and poultry farmers from future losses in trade negotiations. The bills have both been described as costly and controversial.
I think every proposal that's made, is something that is considered. But I don't think it's helpful to issue ultimatums. I think that what is helpful is to demonstrate that Parliament is focused on Canadians and not politics.
Now that the NDP's deal with the Liberals is over, the Conservatives are using every possible opportunity to try to topple the government.
Today, we'll vote to trigger a carbon tax election.
The bloc holds the balance of power, able to keep the government afloat, and it's flexing its muscles.
What we realize right now is that the Bloc Québécois did nothing for Quebecers in the last 2 years, and now they are scrambling to find a way to be relevant and to provide some record.
But even if the Bloc Québécois does vote against the government after its self-imposed deadline, it still needs the support of the NDP to trigger an election. And the NDP says it's taking votes on a case-by-case basis. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
2 Canadians have been killed in Lebanon, according to their son. Kamal Tabata tells the CBC his 74-year-old father and 69-year-old mother were killed in an Israeli airstrike. The incident apparently happened in southern Lebanon during the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. The CBC's Chris Brown has the latest on the conflict.
Hezbollah unleashed one of its most fearsome weapons, targeting the Tel Aviv area with a ballistic missile that could have caused immense damage. The white streak in the sky appeared to be Israeli defenses shooting it down, but the fact it was launched at all is significant.
This is the first time in history that Hezbollah terrorists have fired at the city of Tel Aviv.
Hezbollah says it was aiming for the headquarters of Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, and it also fired smaller weapons at northern Israeli communities, wounding 3. Hezbollah has been badly hurt in recent days by Israeli airstrikes that have killed top commanders. Lebanon's health ministry says more than 600 people have been killed and there is chaos throughout the country. Israel says it's trying to force Hezbollah to abandon its support for Hamas so that tens of thousands of Israelis evacuated from northern Israel can return home. But Lebanon's health minister told CBC News that children and women make up most of the victims.
The vast majority, if not all, of the wounded who are being brought to hospitals are civilians.
Hospitals are buckling under the strain, and there are now more than 500,000 people who've been driven from their homes. Some have ended up at a school in Saida, Lebanon's third largest city. We slept on the street for 2 days, said Sheen Hamoud, a mother of 2. This former Israeli intelligence officer says Hezbollah is under pressure to demonstrate its resilience despite its losses, which is why leader Hassan Nasrallah turned to one of its most deadly weapons.
He sent a signal to Israel when he launched one rocket, just signaling that Israel exaggerated and is still signaling that he is measured.
He says the message from Hezbollah may be that there is room for a political deal, which is what multiple reports suggest the U.S., France, and other countries are now urgently trying to broker, which could include Hamas in Gaza as well. Even so, there are indications that yet more escalation may come first. Israel's top military officer told reservists that their possible entry or a ground offensive into Lebanon may be imminent. Chris Brown, CBC News, Haifa.
Cineplex is vowing to appeal after being slapped with a fine of nearly $40 million. The theater chain is accused of adding hidden fees to tickets sold online. Anis Hadari explains what the decision could mean for other companies.
Movie theater giant Cineplex is facing a record fine of nearly $39 million. The company found guilty by a tribunal of misleading customers by hiding a $1.50 fee when buying tickets online. The case covered purchases in late 2022 and all of 2023.
I had no idea there was extra fees. If I knew ahead of time, I would have been buying my movie tickets in person a long time ago.
I prefer a more transparent option, right? To just show me the price up front.
I think a penalty is a good thing. I think it's a good shot across the bow of anybody thinking that might be a fun move to try on their customers some other time.
That penalty is over what's often called drip pricing or junk fees, where a surprise charge shows up before you can complete your purchase. Competition experts say punishing companies that use them is smart.
What this allows for is a more level playing field with companies that were being forthright with their pricing.
Cineplex wouldn't agree to an interview, but in a statement said, "We are shocked and disagree with the decision and will appeal to the federal court." Appeal or not, this win could lead the Competition Bureau to take on other junk fees.
For sure, I think it will, if anything, it'll invigorate further their desire to have, increased enforcement and penalties in this area.
But that may not stop companies from charging you those fees. Canadian law only bans hiding them, and low competition means low incentive to cut prices.
I think across areas like airlines, like banking, we need to change the underlying competitive structure that allows companies to get away with charging the fees in the first place.
As for Cineplex, don't expect any refunds. This legal fine does not go to consumers. And the movie giant is not getting rid of the fee. Anis Hidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Coming up, researchers at Western University are looking into whether some of the damage from the Jasper wildfire was caused by another natural yet dangerous phenomenon. More on that when we return. The damage from the Jasper wildfire in Alberta has been devastating, but there's a looming question over how it all happened and whether a second natural and dangerous phenomenon came into play. Julia Wong has more on what researchers are looking into.
As wildfire ripped through Jasper National Park, the destruction left behind was sometimes baffling, like this shipping container that ended up in a river.
This is a locker, and it was obviously blown into this pole here, wrapped around it.
Now, researchers want to know whether some of it was caused not by wildfire, but one or more fire tornadoes.
We know we have a damage pattern at the surface. It's showing a rotating column of air, but does that rotating column of air attach to a cloud, right? Is it just part of the fire, or is it actually attached to a cloud above? And yet we've had 2 EF3 tornadoes.
He says a fire tornado can signal a wildfire's intensity and provide information to firefighters on how to respond. So the team recently visited Jasper to survey the destruction from the sky and document debris.
It's really helpful to be able to compare, where that item started and then also where it was carried to afterwards.
We can look at the tree directions and do a detailed study there, and we can try to get actual wind speeds from that.
This fire tornado in BC last summer was Canada's first recorded, and one of very few recorded globally, the team says. Confirmation of a second would be a big deal.
Fire tornadoes are still a very open-ended and brand new field of research.
As the climate changes, there's concern more intense wildfires could make fire tornadoes more common in Canada, creating urgency to learn more about them now.
Is it going to be the case where when these intense fires occur, we're going to get extreme winds? You really need to be aware of the risks that these intense fires pose.
It could take months for the team to definitively say whether any fire tornadoes touched down in Jasper National Park. Research that could teach us what extreme wildfires are really capable of. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Riley's back in now. And Riley, the video that we saw from Jasper just in that and as it was happening, it was incredible video, devastating, but there's a beauty in some of that with that fire tornado video.
Yeah.
It's unlocking a new fear for me.
Oh, yeah.
That's terrifying. And there's stuff happening literally all over North America.
Yeah, all over North America, from fires to a major hurricane. Now I have some video I want to show you. This is some of the preparations that are happening in parts of Florida as they brace for what is now Hurricane Helene. Sandbagging underway. Officials have declared emergencies in both Florida and parts of Georgia. They are predicting life-threatening storm surge along the entire west coast of Florida. And in fact, some of the storm surge could end up being more than 4 meters above ground level. So this is turning into a major situation that will have an impact on parts of the southern states, particularly Florida. So here is where Helene is right now. You can see some of the outer bands of rain already impacting parts of the Gulf Coast of Florida. There's the center of it where it did cross through a glancing brush on Cancun earlier today, but still did cause some pretty significant rain and wind in that part of Mexico. So here's the track of that. Currently at a Category 1 hurricane, winds sustained at 140 kilometers an hour as we have hurricane warnings and tropical storm warnings out. This will make landfall at this point. Looks like by about supper time tomorrow as a Category 4 hurricane with winds at or above 215 kilometers an hour. And still, even as it crosses into Georgia from the Big Bend to Florida, still sustaining that Category 1 status before it starts to dissipate a little bit as it heads further north. The impact on Canada at this point, pretty minimal, maybe some cloud cover, maybe some showers as we head into the weekend, but certainly a dangerous situation to keep our eyes on south of the border. Here's Moggy. Thank you, Ricky, for sending this picture. And I know Ricky is a very frequent watcher of our show, so thank you so much for watching. You can email talkback@cbc.ca with your photos. 16 degrees to start the day tomorrow under a sunny sky. Windy through the afternoon. South winds 30 gusting to 50 through the Red River Valley and 24 by 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. Overnight temperatures look like this. Keep in mind our normal daytime high for this time of the year, 15 degrees. So we're getting down to 16 in places like Portage, 18 in Dauphin overnight tonight. Clear skies right around southern Manitoba and northwestern Ontario. Bit of cloud through northern Manitoba. glancing chance of a shower through northwestern Manitoba overnight tonight. The better chance of that comes as we get through the day tomorrow, with mainly sunny skies into the afternoon, turning into some cloud cover by later afternoon with those showers. Southern Manitoba looks like this, hot and sunny through the afternoon. Temperatures close to that 30 mark as well, Brittany. We'll talk 7-day and some rain in your 7-day forecast coming up.
Ooh, all right. Thanks, Riley. Well, it might not feel like it, but pumpkin spice season is officially here. We'll take you to a Manitoba pumpkin patch that has gourds galore. That and Riley Lachak is back with a last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Schwabe Pumpkins in St. Andrews opened to visitors this past Friday. There are lots of pumpkins of all different sizes and colors to choose from, along with some fall family attractions, including massive bale displays. Shannalee Vidal was at the farm and found gourds galore.
Our first one that we started with was a pumpkin, and then since then we've added a cat and a turkey and a spider. It was just inspired by my daughter's not liking spiders, so we tried to make one that was fun.
So we're inside of a giant pumpkin.
What is this? So this is a pumpkin called Big Macs that we made out of rebar and spray foam. And yeah, it seems to be one of the most popular things. I think it's kind of cool when kids walk up and see it. I didn't realize I loved pumpkins until I met George and his family did farming.
We go through, we cut them all, and we leave them in the field for a few days just to cure them. And then we come along and we pick them up and haul them into the barn here. We come with the tractor with a bin and just fill the bins up.
We grow 35 varieties of pumpkins, like all different colors and shapes. And there's a few colored ones mixed in. We've got the blancos, and this one will turn bright yellow. It's called the Sunlight. These are also a new one to us this year. They're called a grizzly bear. This one is basically like an acorn squash when you eat it. They're called Midnights. This one here is called a Joby Little, and it's the smallest one that we grow.
So these are the gourds, the decorative gourds.
And this variety is called an Autumn Wing. A lot of the decorations you see in here are from customers and from family, and people bring me pumpkin stuff all the time that they find at garage sales. Often when I run into people, they're like, "Where do I know you from?" And then they're like, "Oh, you're the pumpkin lady." So now that's kind of what people call me, it seems like. A lot of the families that have been coming for years and years, and then we've even have people that came as children and now they're bringing their children. So it's really, really nice.
This is a new thing that you added last year?
Yeah, we added it last year in time for my daughter's wedding, so it was kind of fun for that. And then we get lots of families back here just spending quite a long time throwing hoops. So this truck here is George's grandpa's truck, and it's a very popular photo opportunity that everyone seems to love here.
This one must be popular.
Yes, very.
Oh, you blocked me.
We put lots of different varieties in here for color, and some people like to just hang out in this spot too. It's a nice little comfy spot under the canopy.
I never would have thought it'd be so comfortable sitting on some hay, but it is.
Yeah, it is nice and soft. It's just a pretty display. Lots of people like to take pictures from it out here too and bring out their wagons and pick out their pumpkins.
How often do you have to replenish?
Quite often throughout the day.
I think I always joke that we grow all these pumpkins so I can get one good pumpkin for carving. So throughout the year I put one aside, and usually it switches as we're emptying bins, and I find one I like more one day. So that's sort of my mission all October, is to find the perfect pumpkin for carving.
And with that, I thought I'd pull out the pumpkin spice forecast if you're hoping for a bit of a maybe pumpkin-inspired beverage. I'm more of the pumpkin muffin guy myself. Tomorrow, we are looking at a very still summerish forecast. Might want to go for the iced version instead of the hot version. 25 by noon. 28 in the afternoon tomorrow in Winnipeg, and we're looking at very warm conditions across the south tomorrow. 23 for Friday, 25 for Saturday, normal high 15 for this time of the year, 22 for Sunday. Then I mentioned a bit of a pattern change into next week. 16 on Monday with a slight chance of showers, and then we're back into more seasonal conditions by the middle of next week. Our weather photo tonight, a gorgeous sunset. Thank you so much, Haven, for sending this one in. I am getting a little bit low on weather photos, so if you have any, talk back at CBC.ca, and that's where I'll be waiting for them.
We love to see them.
We do. Now to a story sure to make any golfers out there more than just a little bit jealous. This week, a PEI golfer got a hole-in-one, which in itself, Brittany, is a bit of a rare feat.
I've never done it. And then, just a few holes later, he defied all odds. Yes, he got another one. Steve Bruce has our daily lift.
Okay, George, let's get another hole-in-one.
Retired accountant George Curley has been golfing for many years, but never have the expectations been as high as they suddenly are now after achieving something even most pro golfers never have.
It's odds that you can't really fathom. I mean, like, I don't know what the odds are winning the lottery or winning 649, but they're probably not that high.
It all started early Monday morning. George Curley and his 3 friends set out for their daily round together at Glasgow Hills. Curley stepped up with his iron on the par 3 third hole and hit a beauty.
He gets up, bang, slabs it in, and boy, is it beautiful. It just pops right into the cup.
Now, most golfers have never hit a hole-in-one, but this was Curley's 3rd.
I wasn't as excited as I was the first time I got a hole-in-one, but I was pretty excited because it doesn't happen very often.
It's what happened next, though, that's truly incredible. As the group approached the next par 3, hole number 7, Curley's golfing mate Dave Blackyer joked that he should make it 2 holes in 1 for the round. A joke because the odds of doing that, according to some golf websites, are 1 in 67 million.
Put it back to back on both par 3s on the front 9. It just doesn't happen.
But then, it did.
We started screaming at George, "George, you did it again!" It was shocked. I think George was just as shocked. The look on his face was something else. I wish that the camera would have been there at the time.
I said, "Boy, that's something else." And I said, "That can't be true," but as it turned out, it was true.
Now, some might say it's just 2 big strokes of luck. Curley's golfing buddy chalks it up mostly to skill.
You got to be a golfer. You got to be consistent. He's on the green on these par 3s all the time.
Though Curley himself is not so sure.
And for those hearing this that say, "Boy, I'd like to be like George Curley," what's your advice to them?
Well, just keep on plugging away. Those are the 2 balls I use.
So what's next for this golfer? Possibly, he says, a trip to the store to buy a lottery ticket. Steve Bruce, CBC News, New Glasgow.
Good advice. Just keep on plugging away. We'll keep doing that, George. Good luck. 4 hole-in-one in his lifetime.
And the weather's still great in Manitoba that you could attempt that if you wanted to here.
If you get one here, send it to us.
Please.
We'd like to know. And if you get 2, we want to come talk to you.
Yes, exactly.
Have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.